Greetings, YouTube. There's a case currently involving the Ninth Circuit Court in California that involves whether or not what are being labeled as second-tier religions deserve equal protection under the law as do first-tier religions. Now you may be asking, what is the difference between a first-tier and a second-tier religion? Well, first-tier religions would be some of the big ones, like the Muslims, Christians, the Jews, Native Americans, things like that. But there's a group that's actually arguing in this court case that the only faith that should be given first-tier status is Christianity, or at least only those that are monotheistic. Second-tier faiths, of course, would be all the others. The pagans, the Buddhists, the Hindus, the Sikhs, the Mormons, Jehovah's Witnesses, etc. All those that are just considered too small, in this case, to be considered first tier. Now, this is taking place in California, so I'm not really sure if it actually falls under the category of just state law. I'm not sure what the religious freedoms under the state Constitution of California are. But I know that on the federal level, all faiths must be viewed equally as per the First Amendment. There are no first-tier or second-tier faiths. Whether your faith is 20,000 years old or 20 seconds old, it's considered equal standing as far as the First Amendment is concerned, which is the way it should be. Because I'm a firm believer that individual, personal, spiritual beliefs are what's really important. The organization that you belong to, if any, and the pedigree of that organization, if any, is meaningless. It doesn't matter in the least. If you have faith, and you're sincere in it, your faith is as good as anybody else's. And I think it's a very chilling concept that a court case could, on some level, decide that some faiths are worthy of First Amendment protection and some faiths are not. Now, of course, in the U.S., 78% of Americans self-identify as Christian. It's not real hard to figure out that the majority of people are Christian, either actively or at least they consider themselves to be passively Christian. Almost more of a cultural Christianity than an active religious spirituality. But the Founding Fathers didn't see it that way. Founding Fathers, first of all, this is going to be a shocker to some people, weren't Christians. A lot of them were deists. They believed in God, but they did not worship Christ himself. They did not see Christ as necessary between themselves and a deity. And a lot of them had a relationship to God that involved the scientific method. The concept that you could best understand the face of God by learning the world around you and learning how it was put together through science. And by doing that, you would eventually come to understand the true reality, the beauty, and the full encompassing power of God. I don't hold this particular belief myself, but there's a certain simplicity to it, a certain directness that's always made me happy. It always made me smile. I think the world could use a whole lot more deists than we have, because I don't actually know if deism is much in vogue at all in the world today. Maybe some of the agnostics out there might hold that belief, but I don't know anyone who actually has it set up a deist church of any variety. I'm hoping that this case does not show that there are different tiers of religion. Religion should be considered equal no matter what. One of the interesting aspects of this case is it was originally started because pagan inmates wanted equal access to clergy, chaplains, religious rites, and things like that. And it's the state is arguing that they, shouldn't have them because it's a minority religion. Now, I can understand that you don't necessarily want to give as many resources to a pagan group, which I mean probably a handful of inmates in any one particular prison, as you would with the Christians. There would be lots of them, of course. So I can understand how resource allocation could become an issue. But I'm sure that if the prisoners were given access to time slots and religious materials, that community members from the outside could come in and deal with some of the leadership roles that these people need without a burden on the state. Because is that kind of what a religious community is about? Helping those in your community. Now, I'm opposed to organized religions of any stripe. However, individuals can step forward, even lay people. They don't necessarily have to be some kind of religious leader. It could help these inmates. And, that kind of thing wouldn't be a burden on the state, which is a good thing because California is in horrible shape when it comes to their budget at the moment. I was opposed from day one with the whole concept of faith-based initiatives during the Bush administration. But let's face it, religious communities are kind of there to support each other. Because what kind of an organization are you? What kind of a community are you if you don't help those in your community, whether they're inmates or not? Because remember, supporting inmates to make sure that they have their needs met, housing, food, medical care, and spiritual needs, is important. Because remember, they're coming back out here someday. And we should really try to do everything we can to make sure that they are well-balanced citizens when they do that. And one of those things that we can do is make sure their spiritual needs are met. And all of those spiritual needs, whether they're Christians, or they're Buddhists, whether they're Muslims or pagans, Jehovah's Witnesses or Jews, need to be treated equally.